It is 3 o'clock, and I imagine if you are here because you are excited to hear from our Distinguished Service Awards, and you're here for the panel. My name is Jen Bronner, and I work in our advancement office, and I'm going to moderate the panel, although I have told all of the panelists, I can't really tell you what to expect because that's on you guys. So we hope that right now you are thinking of some really great questions. And while you're thinking of the questions you want to ask the panelists, I'm going to have them introduce themselves, tell you who they are, when they were here at Muskingum, and what that path from Muskingum to now has looked like for them. So Chris, we'll have you start us off.
Hello, so my name is Christopher Havel. I graduated in 2004 with a biology major. From there, I moved on. I did spend a very short time, 1.5 a year as a teacher, and realized that was not for me. I moved on to be working as a naturalist for the state of Ohio for a brief time, but realized I still wanted to work directly with animals and make more of an impact on conservation. So it took me to San Antonio, Texas, where I worked at the San Antonio Zoo for about 6 years. And from there, I moved on to SeaWorld San Antonio, where I've since been promoted into an aquarium supervisor. So I run the aquarium department, which is a lot of marine life, but some terrestrial life as well, like tortoises and sea turtles. And my real focus down there is I do a lot of the rescues that are down there. So I'm part of our SeaWorld rescue team. But I also do research outside of SeaWorld as well with the TSA, which is the Turtle Survival Alliance, which is one of the leading turtle conservation programs in the world, and doing a lot of field studies in the state of Texas in numerous sites studying populations. We've just had numerous publications published on some of our findings, and a lot of it is geared towards making changes in their local environment to help the animals, so we don't get into a point where they get to be endangered. So we focus a lot more on a lot of the common species to make sure that they stay common, and gearing more towards getting legislation passed as well. On top of that, I've been involved a lot in exhibit design as well, with the new construction of a lot of our exhibits there, taking it a step further than the old school zoological type habitats that you see, and a lot of innovation, especially in our turtle reef habitat, where we made an innovative design and worked with a more of a naturalistic filtration, where we got rid of a lot of the energy components and a lot of the water wasting, energy wasting components, and went to a natural filtration, which is we're really proud of, and I'm really proud of because I was heavily involved in the design. But it is the only natural filtration of an aquarium exhibit in the entire world. So we're pretty proud of that, and I'm very proud of that, and it's worked out really great. So that kind of is where I'm at today. So I'm still there at SeaWorld San Antonio doing a lot of the conservation work with, once again, sea turtles, local native aquatic turtles as well, nesting seasons. And
well, I hope you got a lot of cord here. That's going to be a problem over there. John Gardner, class of 68. This building was not here when I was here. Neither was Boyd. So I guess the last building that was built by the time I got here were some male residence dorms up on the circle, what we called the circle back there. Which are more or less vacant now. After I graduated from Muskingum, like Chris, I went to San Antonio, but I spent one summer in San Antonio going through basic training for the Air Force. That was all I needed of San Antonio, so no power to you for staying there. Summers in San Antonio can be wicked. Was an Air Force navigator on C-130s in Southeast Asia, broadly defined Southeast Asia. Came back to the States, taught navigation for a few years till wannabe navigators. Then got out of the Air Force, went to IU Bloomington, got an MBA, started a career as a CPA in Elkhart, Indiana. Did that for about 10 years or so. My client hired me away, worked in the RV industry for that company for a while. We sold the company, we bought the company back, we sold the company, and then I left. And retired, and my wife retired the year before me, and we decided to take a bicycle trip from Santa Barbara, California, St. Augustine, Florida. Therese decided she'd had enough after 3,335 miles or whatever it was. And then I rode all the way up to St. John's, Newfoundland. About midway through that trip, a friend that I had worked for gave me a call and said, I've got this great idea for a business. And I said, I can't talk to you. This conversation never happened because I had a non-compete agreement. And a year later, he calls back, year to the day, calls back, and we ended up starting up a brand new fiberglass business, again serving the RV industry. Held that for about 6 or 7 years, sold that, retired, stayed retired this time, and I've been on some boards, community bank board in the Elkhart County area, 2 university boards, Muskingum being one of them, and the board of the Stratford Festival of Canada, which is one of the premier repertory theaters in the world. So that brings me up to today.
These guys are tough acts to follow. My name is Katona, Canfield. I am from the class of '86. When I graduated from here with my chemistry degree, I went on to the OSU College of Medicine. Did not attend one single football game while I was there because I was very busy studying. And then did my family practice residency at Riverside Hospitals in Columbus. And have spent all but 1 year of my medical career serving the Norwalk and Wakeman communities, which is close to Cedar Point, for those of you. I'm a small town person. I always want to be a small town doc. I've seen a lot of transformation in healthcare over the last 35 years. But I love serving the patients of my community, and 4 years ago I decided that I wanted to continue to serve in some additional ways. I wanted to serve my fellow colleagues, so I became the Chief Medical Officer of our employed provider group right as COVID hit. That was a great launch into leadership. I also look for other ways to serve in the community through my church, I'm the jail physician, I was a hospice physician, and I also am very involved in our international nursing community, trying to help them become comfortable in our community. They're far from home. So just a life of service started right here in Muskingum. I was on the Social Concerns Committee. We used to make soup and have soup once a week. A lot of fun there. So I'm very happy to be back here. A lot of new buildings since I was here last too. But my daughter did graduate from here in, I forget what year, 15 I think.
Hi, I'm Ann Haven Thompson. I graduated from Muskingum in 1987. And right from the get-go, I became really interested in the radio station, WMCO here, and especially thanks to Dr. Harmon that's sitting up here, and also the cable access channel. And I've gone into a career of radio and television and have really enjoyed it. Had a lot of interesting experiences. Most recently, about a year ago, I started doing something new. I went to work for the PBS station in Cincinnati, and we started a podcast and also a TV show. It's kind of a public service effort looking at community issues, and season number 1, looking at the housing crisis. Obviously, there's no easy solution, but we're using solutions journalism to offer up possible ideas. And I see this as kind of journalism for good, so I'm really excited about that.
We're just going to get to the good stuff now. So I had a former boss who once said, and many of you maybe heard her say this, so I have to give her credit because this is not an original. The first question is always the hardest one to ask. So I'm gonna skip the first one and move right on to the second one. So who has the second question for us? Don't make me move to the third question. There we go, front row.
I'm always interested whether there was a particular class you took at Muskingum that you found resonated throughout your many career stops.
So the question is about maybe a particular Muskingum course that resonated post-graduation through different career stops.
So I would have to say, even though I didn't look forward to going each time, extemporaneous speaking. I was a shy kid from Lebanon, Ohio, down near Cincinnati, and kind of very nervous, but because I was a speech communication major, it obviously made sense that I had to take this class, and this shows how old I am. Like, it wasn't on the computer. We would go through all kinds of magazines like Newsweek, and just cut out articles on every topic and then put them, just like organize them, and so we would be given a topic, speak on such and such world issue, and then you had, I think, maybe like 5 minutes to prepare for a 10-minute speech. And so it really helped me in my career, like, think on my feet. Obviously, I'm covering lots of live events, breaking news, and that kind of, it prepared me very well.
That would make me barf. If I had to do that. I think it would be a toss-up. I took a class called Abnormal Psychology by, what's his name? Taylor, Professor Taylor? Psychology professor, sorry. And in dealing with patients for several years, you realize there's a lot of abnormal psychology out there. And, but probably the other class, Joe Hawkins, he did some modern Christian thought and philosophy, and I just loved that man. So everything that he taught me, I just sort of embodied so that I could take it in the future.
That's a hard question.
That's what I gave.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Modern Christian thought. That is not my answer. There were 2 courses, and we were chatting beforehand, 2 courses that I did not like here at all. Modern Christian thought and psychology. So those are out. The 2 courses that might have had the biggest impact, it wasn't because of the content per se of the course. And both of them were in the English department, which is strange because I was not an English major. When I came here, somehow, unbeknownst to me, they threw me in the honors English program. It's still a mystery. And the professor, whose last name I think was King at the time. King? Yeah.
Lauren?
And we had, I think the book was called The Education of Henry Adams. This is not light reading. And we had to write a 1-page paper for every class. So this was 3 times a week. You had to write this 1-page paper, typewritten, with no mistakes on it. You know how frustrating it is to get to the bottom line and hit A instead of Z or whatever it is. I thought that I'd really been screwed over by having to take this course because everybody else was reading Don Quixote. And after about a month, I realized I was better off than spending a whole semester on Don Quixote. But it forced me to write and to be particular about the accuracy of my typing, among other things, but also the accuracy of the words in what you wrote. So the writing. And history major, you ended up writing a lot of papers. So big deal here was writing, because it really helped me later on in business. The other one was also an English course, and we had 15 books. This is like American literature, 15 books for the semester. One of them was Uncle Tom's Cabin, and that might have been the shortest book, which is a pretty thick book. I managed to read 7. The final exam was on the other 8. Which when I opened the exam thing, I said, uh-oh. But then I realized I had never missed a class in that course. And I paid attention to every one of those classes, and I knew enough of those 8 books in order to ace the exam. The value of showing up. They don't teach you that as a course anywhere, but the value of showing up can get you a long ways. So those two, writing and showing up.
So for mine, it wasn't necessarily the courses per se, but it was just the professors in general. During my freshman year, I knew I was going in as a science major, and I took a geology course at, I believe, 5:30 in the morning, which nobody wants to be up at 5:30 in the morning, especially it was Dr. Kovac at the time, he's got a dry sense of talk. But I could see his excitement when talking about fossils and rocks, and just his excitement that you could see in him. He didn't always personify it. And then later on, taking another course, which is I don't think is the most exciting topic, but plant systematics with Danny Ingold. Just his excitement over anything, just kind of ensured that I was in the right field. Because I have that dry sense of humor and talk as well. But I have an inner excitement as well. And just seeing that's what I saw in the professors, it just kind of reinsured that I was in the right field. Our plant systematics, going out, looking at plants and getting excited about finding new plants, and then seeing a bird fly by and watching Danny kind of chase it down the hollow, pointing out where the bird is to everybody. So that just once again reinforced that I was in the right path, and I was on the right trajectory for my career.
And looking for the next question. Oh, very good, very good.
So I want to ask you guys, this is really fun, I want to ask you a question that I ask my students quite a bit, which is, we've got lots of options on where to go to college. What was it that sunk the hook, so to speak, and causing you to come to Muskingum? What was it that captured you?
So Dr. Dooley's question is a question that he asked to his students, and he's now asking to the panelists, what was it that helped them choose Muskingum? So many options. Why Muskingum?
So my original hook for Muskingum, they kind of caught me at a fair inside my high school auditorium or gymnasium, and it was talking about the wilds. The wilds is what kind of caught my attention, knowing that I had an interest in animals, and the fact that we were going out there and doing field studies with an old strip mined area. It just, for some reason, that's what caught my eye. And then when I got here, I realized I was in the right spot, once again, with the professors that I had met, and just the overall atmosphere of the campus. It just it felt right after that point. But the initial hook was the collaboration with doing research out at the wilds.
Jim, you sound like the public speaking professor in my first semester freshman year. The first speech was, "Why did you come to Muskingum?" I came to Muskingum because it was far enough away from home, but not too far away from home. So I grew up in extreme northwest Ohio. This was before I-70 and all the interstates, so it was about a 5 or 6 hour drive down here. Nobody from my high school was coming here. That was a hooray. That was one reason. Another reason was most of my high school class was going to Bowling Green, which to me was too big a school, which meant Ohio State was really too big a school. So I wanted a smaller school, something far enough away from home, but not something out in the middle of Utah somewhere. And I came down here and did a campus visit, and it's a pretty campus. The people were friendly, felt at home.
So I grew up in a very small town, and we never went anywhere, so I was a very small town person. But I knew to get to medical school, I had to go to college. So, and we, once again, we're a very blue-collar family, not a lot of money out there. I knew I had to make good grades, so I got scholarships. But so I believed I'd have to go to Ohio State for college. I was petrified to go something that large. And I had a track coach, Don Duper, who talked me into coming and looking at Muskingum. And he said, "You'll do okay, they'll take care of you." And in fact, he gave me $100 a month to help me come here. Because once I came here, I looked at the campus and I saw how nice and small it was and how nice people were. I said, I could do this. And so he's the one who talked me into it. He said, I think you could even run track. And so I did. But the races got so fast by the time I was a senior that they put me in the 400 hurdles because I just couldn't keep up anymore. So it was because of that simple act of kindness that he did. And he would never let me pay him back. He said, just pay it forward. So over the years, I have been able to pay it forward. And one of those folks actually came to Muskingum as well, and I helped her through her college career as well.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
So my shallow answer is, it was a pretty campus. It is a pretty campus. I saw it in a brochure. I was like, Mom, Dad, like I want to go visit there. And again, I'm from Southwest Ohio. Nobody had ever heard of Muskingum. And if they thought they did, they'd be like, oh, that's in Michigan. It's like, no, that's Muskegon, Michigan. That's not Muskingum. I also understood that they had a radio and TV station, so that interested me. I also liked the musky hello and just how friendly everybody was and the small class size.
Great. Hang on to that mic. Who's got the next question? Hal?
As I listen to you, it sounds like all of you in your professional life have some dimension of service to your community, to your colleagues, to other things. Could you share some about what drives you to that, what the experience is, what students might learn from what you have been through in that dimension of your life?
So how Muskingum helped us in our careers, is that what you?
Well, no, I'm talking about service.
Service. Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
service to your community, to your profession, etc.
Yeah. Well, I was in a number of service organizations here. Was it Lambda Sigma? Or
Yeah.
What was the?
That was sophomore honorary that
Yeah.
does
Mhm.
service.
That's right, yeah. Just the importance of, but that's the way I was raised, so I'm not sure if, you know, how much, I guess Muskingum just helped me further that thought that it's important to serve others and to volunteer places, and there were certainly a lot of opportunities here to participate in various organizations, so that helped.
I think to encourage people to do service is one of the things I think you're hoping that we can do. I mean, it's very personally rewarding to be able to be part of something that helps other people. And often what happens is it always helps me. You know, you go on a mission trip and you think, I'm going to go down and help those Belize people. You know, and you come home a changed person because you saw that their faith was greater than anything you've ever exhibited here in our very comfortable first world living. Or, you know, if I was helping set up an apartment for one of our international nurses, not only do I feel good because I'm able to help them and help them feel welcome in our community, but I have such rich friendships from these different folks that I have been part of their lives over the years, and to see them grow and have kids and stay in our community. I think those things are just wonderful. I can't do things on my own strength. I use the strength of my faith, and those are the reasons I serve, but they just give me such rich rewards back. Giving always makes you feel great, but you get more back in return.
Well, Ann mentioned she was brought up that way. My parents probably fit into Ann's parents' mode. My mom and dad both were involved in church activities. My dad, Veterans Affairs activities, civic stuff. But then I mentioned that bicycle trip. And 20 years or so before that happened, I enjoyed going on bicycle rides where a bicycle club would invite people to come and you could go riding 100 miles around their area. And I enjoyed those. And I joined a bicycle club in the South Bend area. And the club had started having a 2-day bicycle ride. And after a year or so, the guy who was running it decided not to run it, and somehow I got blessed with it. That could be a curse or that could be a real blessing. So the ride ended up growing to having about 1,500 people at its peak. It always had more than 1,000 people. 2-day ride, and I'm in charge of coordinating all of that and seeing the joy of the riders on the ride, and then people coming up after the ride and say, "This is such a great ride, we'll be back again next year." Just that feedback keeps you going on that. And lately, Teresa and I, last summer we took a group of Muskingum students to Stratford, Ontario to go to the theater up there. And to see their eyes open when they're seeing world-class theater after, I mean, they all come from Southeast Ohio, and it's not exactly what you would call the prime theater-going area of the world. But Stratford is. It's world-class stuff up there. And seeing their reaction to really great theater opens their eyes. It's a great sense of you did something right.
So for me, like I said, a lot of the service that I have is towards animals and animals that are in need. But the benefit to it is when you see, when you're able to convince, when we're out captaining a boat looking for cold stunned sea turtles in Texas, usually when cold stunned sea turtles are happening, that is right in the heart of hunting season and fishing season. So convincing a hunter of why you're out there, and we've been able to convince some of the hunters to abandon the hunt and actually help come out and rescue sea turtles. So actually making a difference, connecting with people and changing their focus and seeing a little bit bigger picture than what they were out there for. They're out there on a Saturday looking to hunt ducks and instead help rescue, 1 or 2 sea turtles. And seeing how excited they get telling that story. Or the organization I work with, working with, once again, the freshwater turtles all over the country, but mostly in Texas. Convincing, it's a volunteer organization, so none of us are getting paid, but convincing people to come out and talking to the public on why it's important, and then watching them talk to their city leaders, which has helped enable to change some of the rivers that are down there, change some of the nesting habitats so we get more of an equal distribution of males and female turtles. The way it was changed recreational, it was going more into a one-sex population. So being able to talk to the residents down there and convince them and put their hands on the animals to make them actually care for the animals, and then push it another step further, go up to their city leaders, and we've been able to, once again, make a difference in a lot of people's lives. And it's due to the volunteering your time to go out there. We're not getting paid to be out there, but you're able to get paid innerly. I bring my son out to a lot of those turtle rescues, and watching him be able to put his hands on the turtles and care about the animals. And he asks me all the time, when is the next turtle trip? I want to be on the next turtle trip. So kind of making that conservation go another generation or more down the line.
Question up at the top, Chaplain Derek.
If you could go back, or not go back, but send a message back to your freshman self, day one, what would you say? Is there a piece of advice you wish you had, something you wish you'd known at the time?
Not that I regret it in any way, but I did take a lot of education courses and did want to become, potentially wanted to become a teacher. I wouldn't say, go back freshman year and say don't waste your time doing that, but I knew all along I wanted to work directly with animals, and I knew as a high school teacher I was not going to get to do that, but I don't necessarily regret it. Because it does help me enable to talk to people and make more of a convincing case when I'm talking directly to, once again, the public, the general public, and that comes off a little bit better. My other thing would be to it sounds bad, but pay a little bit more attention to class. I was a member of a fraternity here and did a lot of social things as well. And did not always put my classwork first, but towards the end I started to focus more on it when I got more towards the finish line. But maybe that freshman year would have focused a little bit harder on my studies.
President Hassler often says, have fun, but make good choices.
I guess what I would say is I wasn't like these other three who seemed to have, when they came here as a freshman, they had a pretty good idea of what they wanted to do. That was not me. I had eliminated a few things that I wanted to major in, and after I took psychology, I eliminated another thing I did not want to major in. I ended up being a history major. And then I got to my senior year and wondered, what am I going to do with this? And Vietnam was going on, and that sort of answered that. I could go into the Air Force and fly around at 20,000 feet over the jungle, or I could get drafted and go around and walk in the jungle. And that didn't take very long to figure out which one was the better option. And then I looked back on life, and almost if you take every 10-year block, and you can start with whatever year you want, and if I look back on 10 years ago and compare it to where I am today, and I would say there's no way you would ever be doing what you're doing today. Get out of Muskingum, and probably 2 years later I was in the Phnom, Thailand, naked fanning for the military people. I just ended up doing stuff I never expected. And to keep yourself open to that, and as long as you don't make a stupid decision, you don't have to make the best decision, just make a good decision, you can come out pretty well.
I would have to say probably don't take myself so seriously. I think I was one of those overly serious, afraid to fail students. So I was like nose to the grindstone. So I probably missed a little bit more of the fun stuff because of that. But I felt like, I'm here, somebody's helping me, I cannot disappoint them. I have to get straight A's, I have to graduate valedictorian, I have to do this. So probably not take myself quite so seriously.
Well, it worked out for you, though. And you said these questions would be easy. We wouldn't have any.
Oh, did I say that? I thought I said I couldn't predict.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything that I don't have any regrets. I think maybe putting it on myself, maybe I could have come out of my shell a little sooner and not been so shy. But my freshman year, what really helped that is when I started covering things for WMCO and just with a microphone, then you have to approach people and be a little bit on the aggressive side. So, but Muskingum gave me a lot of opportunities.
Another question.
I have a question about relationships. Do you have any lasting relationships with, say, a classmate or a professor, of people that you knew here that you still are in touch with?
Well, of course, Dr. Huron and I, we sent Christmas cards. We had lunch together today, and I certainly owe a lot to him for my success. I do keep in touch with a few people. One really good friend, she was in my wedding, Susan Parr, or Zalek. She lives not too far from here, so that would be one of my good friends.
I have just a few people because, life gets busy. Carrie Morse, which is a classmate of Ann's, was my maid of honor in my wedding, and we would disappear from each other's lives for 5 years at a time and then get back together and be just as, close as we always were. I mean, we were each other's longest running friend, and recently we discovered her. She's in DC, where my youngest daughter is, so it's nice to have somebody there keeping an eye on my youngest daughter. And Yvonne Stevens was my roommate in Ann's class as well, in Finney Hall, so we send Christmas cards. As far as professors, I was sharing with this gentleman here that I used to work here in the summers on the landscaping crew, the grounds crew. I was the only girl. A lot of fun. We got to relocate the ducks from the pond one year, while they drained the pond. It was great. We had the soccer net out there chasing these ducks to get them to take out the reservoir for a while. But I worked for Dr. McClellan's mother in her flower gardens. She taught me how to do the flower gardens. I had to put one trowel length between each plant. I mean, that's where I learned my love of gardening, actually. So, yeah, just a few.
Short answer, no. My life seems to be in chunks. And there was high school. You had friends in high school. And then I come to Muskingum. And the reason I came to Muskingum was to get away from high school. So that was so much for the high school friend. And then I go into the Air Force. It sends you all over the place. And you get out and you start all over again somewhere. And it seems to have gone like that. So there were the social club that I was in when I was at school. We had some reunions like every 5 years. One of the brothers decided he wanted to do that. So I would come back for those, but then he decided he didn't want to do it anymore, so we just lost touch.
So for myself, there's friends I have from high school that I text every once in a while and maybe talk to once or twice a year. But there are the groups of fraternity brothers that were here from Muskingum that I talk to pretty much every single day. I did move to Texas, so I moved pretty far away. Some are still here in Ohio. Some have since moved to Texas as well, but Texas is big, so we're nowhere near each other. But I talk to them, I would say, almost every day, and we have a text chain where there's about 5 or 6 of them in there that most of our texts are not anything important at all, but I do communicate and keep in touch with a very good handful of friends, and anytime I come back and see friends that are from here, it's kind of like you never left. You just pick up right where you left off, and you can talk to pretty much anyone. But my closest friends that I have now are all former fraternity Muskingum alumni.
Another question from the audience. All right, while you're thinking, I've got one. This sort of made me think of this when you were talking about service, but could you share with us something about your career, something about your vocation that you are most proud of? Understanding that most of the recipients of this award are pretty modest about their lives and their accomplishments, but could you just brag for a minute and tell us something that you're proud of?
Probably not.
Chris,
Because
do you want me to give the mic to your mom?
No, it's all right. I am a pretty modest person. A lot of people tell me all the cool things I do and how cool my job is, and how it's amazing that you get to work with all these animals, both in the wild and then also breeding them in captivity. All the different organizations that I work with, whether it's O-Search, tracking sharks and teaching them how to artificially inseminate sharks in the wild based on things we do in our park. And I don't even think about it at this point anymore. So it is kind of a modesty thing, but it's overall just working with all these unique animals, endangered animals, protected animals, common animals, and getting people to care about those animals, and all the different scientific advancements that we've done in the zoological field. It's something it's something I'm proud of being involved in, but I really don't think about it at all.
Going back to the fiberglass company that we started, we decided that we were going to support the Elkhart County Fair. And in Elkhart County, the fair is a big deal. It gets an 8 or 9 day run, and it gets 200,000 people. And we decided, well, how can we help support this? And the 4-H part of that is a big deal of the fair. And the kids raised hogs and cattle and everything under the sun. So we decided if our employee had a son or a daughter that was raising animals, we would buy the animal. Then we thought about that for a while, and we said, yeah, that's a good idea, but we can do better than that. And we contacted the fair board and said, what can we sponsor at the fair? And they had a draft horse competition and a draft horse show, and the prior sponsor had quit. So we said, okay, we'll do that. So we had the company for 6 or 7 years. We sold the company, and the buyers who still own the company have taken over and have done all that, continuing on. And this was a conglomerate company that we sold to. The fact that we did something that was so good in the local community that the buyer from out of town kept doing it, that says we did something right.
When I was in residency, I had probably the highest rate of, this is terrible, organ procurement decisions made for organ donation, because I was very passionate about that. I had a cousin who died in an auto accident and was brain dead, and I could not convince my aunt to let him donate his organs. He was so healthy, and it was just a sad thing. And so I think that turned this passion into being, I would just spend the time, talk to the families, and talk about how this would benefit people and how this makes something out of the terrible tragedy that you're going through. So that, I think that early on, that was one thing that I did feel proud about that, yeah.
So 2 things. The one that is most gratifying is really just training other journalists. So at one of my stations, I was in charge of the internship program, because learning about it in the classroom is one thing, but then I really saw the importance of taking them with me on stories, even though some of my colleagues were like, oh, that's a lot of work, dragging somebody along. But they really learned. And one of the last interns I had, he went to Harvard, and I was like, gosh, he knows more than I do. Like, he was up on all the electronics, and he was showing me things. So I think you could also learn from. So that's gratifying working with them. But just fun as far as like being proud. I don't know, just one of the more fun things I did. This has been a number of years ago, but I rode the Vomit Comet at NASA. So at one of my stations, I don't know if they couldn't get anybody from any other station, but I kind of got the idea that by the time they had called me, might have been like the last one, like, hey, you want to go with us down to Houston and do this? And I got permission from my station, and so I had to go through special training and unpressurized chamber, and then we actually were in a KC-135, and they gave us like uppers and downers, so we wouldn't get sick, and so I Velcroed my recorder to my chest and my flight suit, and I was down there with the people who asked me to go were actually students at the University of Cincinnati studying aerospace engineering, so they were doing experiments, and they wanted somebody to go cover them. So that's what I was doing. And so we got in this plane, and we did like I think like 32 parabolas, so like up and down, and then like you float up and it's like, okay, and then you float up, and then it's like, all right, get down, because then you're gonna experience like 2 Gs and like you're lying there, and so we did that like 32 times, so that was kind of cool.
I don't know about you, but I'm glad that I asked that question because you guys have done some really amazing things. So we're glad that you took just a minute to brag. So thanks for doing that. I think we probably have time for one more question, and I would love for it to come from the audience. So who has been waiting until this very minute to ask their question? Ah, very good. Let's hear it.
So, Anne mentioned at the beginning that she was a member of WMCO, and that kind of reflected her career moving forward. So, for the rest of you, is there something from your college years that still reflects your life now? And then, Anne, if you want to kind of expound on WMCO and your career now and how those two things relate to each other.
Could you just repeat that so everybody can hear it, or paraphrase that before you answer?
Right, he was mentioning that I had said about WMCO, and that really helped me in my career, and he was wondering from the rest of the panel what stuck out with him, or like what did they do here, or participate in here that helped them with their career. And I'll just emphasize again how much WMCO meant to me and how it gave me real world experience, so I could come out of here and have a resume tape like already made and then present that to 55 KRC where I started working, and that really gave me like a head start.
For me, it would probably be the Muskingum Christian Fellowship, the Social Concerns Committee, and then Ken Blood had us do a hospital chaplaincy program, so I did that. So I think those are probably the things that have stayed with me the most.
Social clubs / fraternities, sororities were a huge deal when I was there. And I was a member of one of them and became what we called the business manager, which was the treasurer, the accountant, whatever. And like a lot of businesses, revenue was one number and expenses were another number. And unfortunately, expenses was oftentimes the greater. And handling that and finding ways either to pare expenses or to get more revenue was, let's just say, it was a definite learning experience, which in the world of business was a valuable learning experience.
My biggest takeaway, and the thing that still holds true nowadays, is once again it is the friendships that I made here, especially once again with my fraternity members. As I mentioned in an earlier question, they are my closest friends. They're the ones I talk to the most. They're the ones I bounce life questions off of. Just talking about sports and weather, but they are the ones that I will talk to pretty much about anything on any given day. So those friendships that I made, that I will be friends with for the rest of my life, and those are the biggest takeaway that I have on an everyday basis from here.
I love that question. Thank you for asking it. One of the things we all say at Muskingum is that the education that you get outside of the classroom is as important as the education you get inside of the classroom. And so I love that all of your answers really supported that which we say here. So thanks for making us feel like we're saying the right thing, even all these years later. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Congratulations on receiving the Distinguished Service Alumni Award. We're so proud to honor you in this way and look forward to celebrating you throughout the weekend. We look forward to having you join us at the networking event or at the All Alumni Welcome Reception on the Quad. And if you're looking for something to do before that reception begins, we have ordered the most beautiful day for you to enjoy. So step out on the Quad and enjoy that sunshine. But thank you again for being here. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.